In a busy city filled with tall buildings and bustling streets, there lived a young man named Jude. He owned a small barber shop tucked in a narrow corner of a busy street. His shop wasn't anything fancy, just a small wooden kiosk with a shaky door, barely big enough to fit two people at once. The sign above his shop was worn out, the paint peeling off from years of neglect. Yet, despite his shabby appearance, Jude's barber shop was always crowded with customers. Jude himself doesn't look like someone who would draw such attention. He lived in a face-me-and-face-you yard where neighbors shared everything, from dirty bedrooms, stores to noisy quarrels over unpaid debts. His clothes were old and tattered, his shoes worn out. He walked around with his head down, as if ashamed of his appearance, and rarely spoke to anyone in the yard. Yet his little shop was always filled with rich men. Jude was known to be one of the best barbers in the city. Big men with expensive cars and fine clothes came to his shop to have their hair cut. They don't care that his shop was small or that he lived in a poor part of town. What mattered to them was how skilled Jude was with his clippers. His cuts were sharp, clean and perfect. No matter who you were, leaving his shop made you feel like you were on top of the world. But there was something unsettling about the way Jude worked. Jude had a dark, terrible secret. He wasn't just cutting hair. Every time a customer sat in his chair, Jude would trim their hair, and after he was done, he would pull out a clean white handkerchief and carefully wipe their heads. His movements were slow and precise. The customer smiled and thanked him for the special touch, thinking it was a kind gesture. What they don't know was that the moment Jude whipped their heads, he was stealing something from them, something invisible but powerful. Jude was taking their destinies, their grace, their luck without them ever realizing it. Those who left his shop felt happy for a while, but in the days that followed, their lives would turn down. They would lose jobs, face problems at home, and watch their wealth disappear, never knowing that their misfortune had begun the moment they sat in Jude's chair. Jude did not stop there. After every haircut, he carefully swept the floor, gathering all the tiny pieces of hair that had fallen. He would pack the hair into a small plastic bags and, under the cover of night, meet with a group of young men, young boys. These boys were who wanted more powers and wealth, and Jude knew exactly how to help them, who would pay him handsomely for their hair. These young men, desperate for power and wealth, used the hair for their dark rituals, and Jude in return became richer and richer, but no one knew how he made his money. In his small room, under his bed, Jude had a mysterious wooden box. Inside that box were his barbing clip and a white handkerchief. Every night, before going to bed, Jude would take out the box, place it on the floor, and light a candle. He would then speak strange words, ancient words to the box. As he did this, the room would grow cold and shadows seemed to dance on the walls. But Jude never felt scared. He knew he was gaining more power. Jude, on the other hand, seems to be growing stronger. He never looked sick, and although he still dressed poorly to keep people from being suspicious, his bank account was overflowing with money. He was living a double life, poor on the outside, but rich and powerful in the shadows. Every night, Jude would return to his room and continue with his rituals, whispering to the boss under his bed, stealing the fate of the men who came to him. But as Jude's power grew, so did the darkness around him. One day, something unusual happened. A new customer came to Jude's shop. He was different from the others. He was tall, with a calm presence and perceiving eyes that seems to see through everything. When he sat down in Jude's chair, he smiled softly. Jude, as usual, trimmed his hair and, like always, reached for his white handkerchief to whip the man's head. But when the handkerchief touched the man's head, something strange happened. The man's eye grew darker, and Jude felt a cold shiver run down his body. He had never felt like this before. The man got up, looked at Jude with a mysterious smile, and said, "Be careful of what you steal, Jude. You never know who might come back for it." Jude stood frozen, his hand shaking as the man left his shop. Something wasn't right. For the first time, Jude felt fear creeping into his heart. Who was that man, and why did he feel so different? That night, when Jude returned to his room, he tried to do his usual rituals. He opened the box under his bed, placed the clip and handkerchief inside, and lighted his candle. But this time, the candle flicked and went out by itself. Jude's room grew cold, colder than ever before, and the shadows on the wall seemed to move closer to him. Jude's heart began to pound in his chest as a dark voice whispered in his ear, "You cannot escape what is coming." Jude couldn't shake off the feeling of dread that had settled deep inside him. The words of the mysterious man echoed in his mind. "Be careful of what you steal, Jude. You never know who might come back for it." He tried to ignore it, but it was as if the walls in his tiny room were closing in on him. That night, Jude tossed and turned in his bed, unable to sleep. His rituals weren't working the way they used to, and the shadows in his room seemed to whisper his name. A few weeks later, trouble began to brew. One of the Yahoo boys that Jude sold the hair to had been caught by the police. His scams had gone too far, and now the law was onto him. The boy, desperate to save himself, made a deal with the police. He promised to expose everyone involved in his criminal activities in exchange for a lighter sentence. It didn't take long for the police to learn about Jude. The Yahoo boy told them everything: how Jude supplied hair from unsuspecting rich men, how he stole destinies, and how he performed dark rituals every night in his small, crypt room. The police were shocked but curious. Could this gruff, quiet barber really be involved in such evil activities? Undercover officers began to watch Jude's shop. They pretended to be customers, sitting in his chair, observing everything he did. At first, they saw nothing out of the ordinary. Jude cut hair like any other barber, but one day they noticed something strange. After finishing a haircut, Jude reached for his white handkerchief and whipped the customer's head. It seems innocent enough, but the customer's expression changed. He looked strange, dizzy, and tired, as if something had been taken from him. The police officers knew then that the Yahoo boy had been telling the truth. Late one evening, as Jude was returning from his shop, he was met by a group of police officers. They grabbed him, handcuffed him, and took him to the station for questioning. At first, Jude denied everything, insisting he was just a simple barber trying to make a living. But when the police showed him the hair they found in his shop and the money he had been paid by the Yahoo boys, Jude knew that it was over. Faced with the evidence and pressure, Jude broke down and confessed. He admitted to stealing destinies and selling hair to the Yahoo boys. He explained how he performed his rituals every night, using the hair and his handkerchief to grow in power while his customers suffered misfortune. The news of Jude's arrest spread quickly through the city. People were shocked to learn that the poor humble barber they trusted had been involved in such dark and evil practice. Many of Jude's customers, the rich men who had lost their businesses and fortunes, finally understood why their lives had taken such a terrible turn. They had been victims of Jude's wickedness, and now they would never trust anyone with their hair again. As Jude sat in his prison cell awaiting his trial, he thought about how his greed and thirst for power had ruined not only the lives of others, but his own as well. His small wooden shop was locked up, and no one ever visited it again. His face-me-and-face-you-yard neighbors whispered about him, calling him the occultic barber who had fooled everyone. In the end, Jude learned that the power he craved had come with a heavy price. He had traded his humanity for wealth and darkness, and now he would spend the rest of his days in misery and regret. The moral of Jude's story spread far and wide, warning people to be conscious. Men learned never to trust barbers blindly. They started bringing their own clippers to the saloon, refusing to let anyone use strange handkerchiefs to whip their heads. They even packed their own hair after each cut, never leaving anything behind that could be used against them. The lesson was clear. In a world where evil can hide behind the most innocent faces, it is important to be conscious and protect yourself. Always carry your own barbing tools, pack your hair after a cut, and never trust blindly. Evil may lurk where you least expect. The end. Thank you guys for watching my stories, and please come back for more stories. I love you.